It wasn't a relative, it was the gardener that we were staying with at the time. And it's easy because at that point, children, especially girls, go through this electra phase of development where they want to be around men.
True.
You know, like their fathers or whatever the case. And my father, bless his sweetheart, he traveled a lot. So as fathers do, they go to work and everything, just mine called for traveling. So he'd be gone for months at a time. So what I did obviously was take on to the gardener, any grown-up adult man around. And I love being outside. So we would go water the plants, you know, all these things. And then we'd play games. We started with a simple game, doctor, doctor, you're running around, you fall down, he's the doctor, he mends your knee, things like that. And then it quickly developed to a level of, you know, now he's touching you and, you know, the doctor is checking you in places. And then suddenly, like, okay, now he's like, okay, take off your this, take off your that, we check if you have broken bones. It's very innocent on my part, but he's taking it farther and farther every day until you get to a point where, like, okay, this is
where is it now?
What people don't realize about sexual abuse, especially with children, is that these people are very smart. They're not gonna go, you know,
straight
it's not like,
and say,
it's not like raping a woman where you grab her and force her. And it's very gradual, and they're gaining your trust, your friendship, and all that. So, you know, every day he'd come with, if it's cookies or, you know, something to entice you and to win your trust. And don't forget, he's my friend.
Wow.
He's taken time to build a relationship. So my mother knows him. Everybody knows him and trusts him. So eventually it got as far as it could go. A lot of people don't believe that if you don't have, can I say, penetration, that it's not sexual abuse, but it is. It is.
Still.
And I want to just say to all of those people out
Everyone
there,
watching,
just because it hasn't gone that far doesn't mean it's not abuse.
True.
As long as you've been touched inappropriately, it's abuse. And it can totally just damage you. And then after that, it just continued for some reason. I always told people, even before I understood, you know, the whole spiritual background, that it's as though I have some kind of cloud or smell that attracts people like that, you know? Even as a child, I knew there's something about me that attracts these kind of men. So it went on like that.
Let me ask you, as this was going on, were you afraid? Were you scared? Did you still trust this man? Did you tell anyone about this?
No, I didn't. Another thing that abusers do with children is either they threaten you or they promise you, or at the end of the day, the child is going to lose something that they really want. So they use that against you. And because I didn't have anyone and my father wasn't around much, he'd be like, you know, if you tell people, they'll send me away. So you won't have a friend and you won't be doing, you know, you won't have a... So it becomes like, wow, okay, you feel like I'm going to be abandoned, you know? I wasn't necessarily scared. I was a bit confused. You know, as it developed, you're confused, like, okay, what does this mean now? Which game is this? But scared, no, because they're still very, you know, they're very kind and so even the child doesn't seem to feel like, oh yeah, this is wrong. You just feel it's off, but not completely, and you can't put your finger on it. Then it just went on, you know. And as I grew old, I didn't get any better. Because now I still attracted those kind of men, and then eventually got into now being raped, actually. And when I look at my life then, I keep thinking, but how can one person go through all these things? It doesn't make sense. So that happened, and it just led to, obviously, if you're broken, as I say, like attracts like. So a broken thing will attract another broken
vessel.
So you go into abusive relationships. Gosh.
So all this time, I mean, of course, it started with this gardener. Did we have more men now coming into your life and abusing you? And tell us specifically about that rape incident, the very first rape incident.
Okay. Yes, I had more men coming into my life and abusing me.
What age is this now?
From 6 throughout.
Okay.
I can't even remember everything. The other thing that people need to understand is our mind is a beautiful thing. So when it can't take on something traumatic, it either blocks it out or you shut down. So a lot of my childhood is a big block.
Okay.
But I do remember incidences. And when it came to the rape, I remember I was working. I started working very young. I think I was 16 or so. And I was working at a hotel in town. So on this particular day, I decided, okay, since I'm working, I left work the night shift. And I thought, since I'm going in the early shift, why don't I go out, meet some friends, and then come back instead of driving all the way home. So we went, I met some friends, and my car broke down along Waiaki Way on the way back. So I decided, let me get out of the car, you know, and I didn't even want to see what it was. It was at some crazy hour. And then you remember that time on Waiaki Way, it was a bit dodgy. So I thought, okay, for safety, let me get out of the car. I'd rather even enter some bar somewhere and call someone to come and help me. So basically, I always say it's a situation where what you were avoiding when you left the car, you found it waiting for you, right where you went to look for safety. So I went to some bar in Westlands. You know, you just enter the first place, and fortunately I found a friend. We take friends lightly. It's just somebody I knew from the clubs. And I told him my situation. He said, okay, don't worry. I have some friends going down that way. They can drop you off. So while they're finishing their drinks, how about you know, have a soda or something? And I thought, okay, I'm not going to have a drink. One, I can't drink, but, well, I did drink then. But I was going to work, and I thought, let me just have a soda since I'm going to work. And I had a soda, went to the bathroom, and came back, and suddenly I couldn't remember anything, you know?
Wow.
And the next thing I remember, I'm in some dark room with some random person on top of me, and I'm like, what is going on? So you're in and out of consciousness. So the one thing I learned from that incident is, for everybody, like, don't leave your drinks on the table. Don't leave them unattended. I'm one of those, even to date, I still insist on, if you're going to bring me a soda, open it in front of me. Don't go open it back there, then bring it. Yeah, so it may sound crazy and obsessive, but do it. You know, it's a small thing that could make all the difference.
That's right.
Now, in the morning, I remember all I could think of is, I'm late for work. I'm late for work. Because I left, the last thing I remember was, I'm going to work. And then suddenly something happened.
And then I'm now late for work.
I was panicking, not because of what had happened, but because I'm late for work. Again, your mind is, you know, I mean, you've seen those people who are hit by cars and they stand up and keep walking.
Yeah, they keep going.
So your mind is still on the same
shock.
track.
Yeah.
So I kept thinking, I'm late for work. Oh my gosh, I'm late for work. So I remember just grabbing my things, putting my clothes on, and leaving that house. Wow. And then I found myself at Chiromo, near that place. And I remember just walking. I walked and walked into town. I just didn't stop. I just kept walking. At some point, I remember hearing this very strange sound, this knocking sound, and I was just like, what is that sound? And when I looked down, it was my knees. I was in such panic mode that my knees were knocking together. Like, that's how scared and, you know, I was. But I couldn't register anything. And all I did was go to work. And the minute I got to work, I went, I took a shower. I think I showered like 7 times, and I reported to work. Normally. Obviously, my boss was like, something's not right with you, you know? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I'm late and everything. And they were like, no, I mean, being late is one thing, but you're not yourself, you know, something's wrong. And he noticed some scars I had. I didn't notice anything. So he's like, you know what, I've actually called your dad. Just go home, take the day off. We're not busy, it's okay. And I kept thinking, no, I need to work. You know, I still hadn't registered. And I remember trying to call a friend, you know, and I wanted to call a friend and say, oh my gosh, I've just been raped or whatever. But I picked up the phone, and when it started ringing, I thought, what am I going to say? How do I explain this? So I couldn't. They called, they picked up, and I said, hey, I'm just checking in. I got to work, so yeah. I couldn't say it. The words just can't come out of your mouth. And So then I thought, okay, my dad is coming, so I'll tell him. And then my dad came, and you know you're 16 and you had been out the night before, so you know how fathers just think, these teenagers, you know. So the minute I got into the car, he said, you know, this is so irresponsible of you, I shouldn't have to pick you up, and then you left the car by the side of the road, all those things. And it went immediately into a lecture. And when he said that it was irresponsible of me, automatically I thought, this is my fault. So it's my responsibility. I was the one who was responsible. I can't even tell him because it's my fault. So that was it. I took it as my fault, and
you blocked again.
I held it in, yeah. And then I remember again going out, because now going out just became a thing. I said, you know, I would leave work, and across the road from the hotel I worked was a bar. So I'd go, get drunk, come back to work. Go, get drunk, come back to work. And that was my life from then, because I couldn't talk about it, I couldn't cry, I couldn't, life had to go on. So I thought, let me numb myself, and that was it. And I remember going to a club in Westlands and seeing that guy. You know, I said, I recognize, and I walked up to him and I said, you know what, I don't know if you remember me from this night, and I don't want any trouble, I just want to know your name. So he told me his name, and I said, okay, you know. I said, now at least I know the name of my first, and that was it. And I walked off and I got drunk, and that story ended like that. And I remember seeing him again years later, and he had, you know, like a wife and kids, and I thought to myself, yeah, God can't exist. Because if I'm still messed up from what he did, how can he be blessed with a wife and kid? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So everything that happened just kept writing off God for me. And I would look at people going to church like, you have nothing better to do on a Sunday, like, aren't you recovering from the night before or something?
What's wrong with you?
It was laughable to me, you know. I used to be like, oh my gosh, you people are wasting time. Like, that guy, Mteja Patikani, like, he's not listening. There's no,
So all this time now you're going out, you become numb. And did you get a child at any point? How? What was your involvement with men all this time sexually?
What happened to me was, of course, if you look at it from a psychological point, you get, first you're in denial, then you go into anger and all these things. And a lot of us stay in anger because we don't know what to do about it. So you're bitter for so long. And then I realized, okay, if this thing that I have is making men go crazy and do certain things, why not use it to my advantage? So I decided I'm going to use sex for power. And my thing was vengeance, and not necessarily trying to get things from you. I don't want a house, I don't want a car, I don't want anything. I just want to make you feel as small as you've made me feel. So I would look for, you know, that guy in the bar or wherever, the loudest guy who's always bragging about, women love me, I'm God's gift. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see. And when I take you home, I'd make sure that I make you feel that small, you know, no reaction, nothing. You know, you look like you're bored, basically, just to humiliate the person. And when they felt completely humiliated, that was my joy, you know. So I honestly to date cannot say how many men I went through. I didn't, because it was a mission of pick them out, you know, a target, kill, like just destroy that ego. And then eventually I decided the ultimate thing would be for me to drop men altogether and go for women. I mean, the biggest humiliation would be that you guys don't do anything for me to the point now I'm going with women. So that's what I did.
So you dropped all the men?
Yeah.
You picked on the women?
Yeah.
Okay. My director tells me we need to stop here.
Okay.
You have to come next time. Like, oh my goodness.
We want to do a part 2 of this story. It's a very interesting story. There's a part where you had sex with your doctor.
Yes.
In hospital.
Yeah. in my hospital bed.
Okay, we will want to do a part 2 of this
No,
because
this sounds a terrible thing. It doesn't.
no. We thank God that you're beyond that now.
Yes.
And you see, for
When
people who
people
are
really
there
get to
now,
hear the healing part of your story,
yes, that's amazing.
it's gonna be mind blowing.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are sorry we have to stop at this particular point. We have to move to something else. But we want to assure you that we're going to do a part 2 of this. It's either going to happen this Sunday or another Sunday. But thank you very much for coming and just for starting this. We'll want to do it better. And now just speak to the nations so that they will also receive healing that you have received. God bless you. We're going for a service, JCC, a live service at JCC right here. But then we'll be coming back at 11 with Tukuza Plus with DJ Kroba and Kendi Ashtiva. God bless you and have a great Sunday.